This is Andi Purewal for Boxing News, joined by promoter Eddie Hearn here in Philadelphia. Forgetting where we are there, Eddie. But yeah, how are you doing?
Doing great. Really excited for Saturday. Lots going on, which I'm sure we'll talk about now.
Won't be now, it'll be afterwards, because obviously you're in a very short amount of time because you've got to shoot off, you've got a few things to take care of. So get into a few other topics before we'll come back to this at the press conference and why we're here in Philly. But yeah, obviously the news yesterday, Conor Benn cleared of any wrongdoing by the NADP. Just straight into it, Eddie, just your initial reaction and your thoughts
Just
on
so happy. I mean, he gave us the news, and it was the news that we wanted. It wasn't. And I think, obviously, in these situations, there's a lot of things that you want to say. This isn't a gloating exercise, but just to put a few things straight, there was no silent ban that he served, and this infuriates me. The one thing that the key line that people have to take away from here is cleared of any wrongdoing. Then the kind of feedback is, yeah, well, he served the silent ban. He's not served the silent ban at all. It's complete rubbish. Yeah, but was there a full hearing? Was it jurisdiction? Yes, there was an absolute full hearing. Nothing to do with jurisdiction. This was a full hearing with the National Anti-Doping Panel, an independent body. Now he's been through UCAD, he's been through the WBC, he's been through the NAPD, and he's been fully cleared. So it was a huge day for Conor Benn yesterday, amongst all the shit. And I have to say that there were times when Conor Benn could have taken an easy way out here, and he probably would have been fighting a year ago. But he refused to give up. He refused to not clear his name. And yesterday he did that. And I can't wait to see one of the biggest stars in British boxing return.
Obviously, I've read UCAD's statement as well, and it mentions in there there's a 21-day period they have to appeal once again the outcome of NADP's decision. Do you expect this to be an ongoing situation?
I mean, it's the NAPD hearing is obviously not a UCAD hearing. This is an independent panel that sort of not overrules them, but they're the overarching kind of ruling body. I don't know, honestly. Who knows? I feel like it's pretty final, but again, anybody's capable of making any decision. For us now, Conor will be here tomorrow, and we will prepare to welcome him back to the big stage. And British boxing has got a superstar on his hands. For me, outside of AJ and Fury, probably the biggest name, the biggest star in British boxing right now. And can't wait for the comeback.
There's been, as you can imagine, a negative and a positive reaction from both sides, for people who would have wanted to kind of return, people who wanted to see him questioned a little bit more. Just on a couple of things which I just wanted to pick up on, has a scientific explanation been given as to why those two positive tests?
This was a full hearing, regarding tests, regarding everything. And, this isn't a case of just going in there and answer. This is the reason is that you guys have been asking us questions for the last 3 months and we haven't been able to say anything. It's because this is how long this process has taken. So the answer to your question is absolutely.
Can I ask what that scientific explanation was?
No, I can't, Andy. I mean, you've just had a full hearing from the NADP. So, they were presented with all the facts. They ruled he's been cleared of any wrongdoing.
Where does this leave now, kind of, in terms of those big fights, in terms of when he's going to be back? What's the plan?
Well, he'll be here tomorrow, and then we're going to spend the next few days planning, really. So many options. Conor's instructions to us is, I want the biggest fights possible. We know that, certainly financially, from a profile perspective, the Chris Eubank Jr. fight is probably the biggest fight in British boxing, outside of AJ against Fury. He can walk into any fight, really, for a world championship at 147. Stanionis, Barrios, Norman, maybe Boots. He can have a top 15 fight at 147. A lot of people saying he's been out of the ring for, a year. I don't see that. I think he's going to want to come back into a massive fight. So it's just exciting. We've got so many options right now, and we've got to make sure we make the right one.
On that note of potential fights, you mentioned the likes of Stanionis, Boots, amongst others. Stanionis and Barrios, amongst others. Boots can be pulled into the equation. Those other names are not on your side of the fence, if you will. Difficult fights to try and make.
Which ones?
Stanionis and
Not
Barrios.
really, because I feel like they'll fancy the fight with Conor Benn. I think they'll think they can beat him. and they'll be financially rewarded for those fights. They're not guaranteed fights to be able to make, but I think if you asked them about the fights, they'd fancy the fight, as Boots would, you know. We also understand that Boots is a level above Stanionis and Barrios and Norman, but Conor wants to fight the best, and Conor wants to fight for a world championship.
Just away from all things Conor Benn, Anthony Joshua will not be facing Daniel Dubois next, according to Frank Warren's comments this past weekend. What can you tell me about his injury?
I mean, Anthony might be facing Daniel Dubois next.
Oh, so do you disagree? Or not disagree?
No, I mean, not in February 22nd, okay. But AJ's next fight may well be against Daniel Dubois, but it won't be on February 22nd. We had a very awkward call with AJ's medical team and 258 and Freddie and Heine and everybody, Ben, and he wanted to fight on February 22nd and basically was told that there is no way you can start camp and be 100% for February 22nd physically. And, you know, there's nothing major. There's 2 or 3 issues that he had, a little bit in camp, but also after the fight as well. And they said, you need to come back in May, June. And he didn't want to do it. He wanted to fight on February 22nd, but unfortunately, we kind of had to overrule him on this and say no, because we can't afford not to get this right. If you get beaten again by Daniel Dubois, you have to seriously consider your future. We got one last chapter in this career that we need to make sure we get 100% spot on. So when he comes back in May or June or whenever that's going to be, you've got to be physically and mentally 100% ready. He wants to rematch Daniel Dubois so bad. I mean, one of the reasons that he wanted to fight February 22nd was he didn't want to lose the opportunity to fight Daniel Dubois. But with all due respect, who else is Dubois going to fight? You know, Parker's a great fight for him in February. If he gets through that, like,
IBF mandatory might be called Bacoli and Caballo's been ordered.
But again, it's a nothing fight for no money. Like, Daniel Dubois is going to want the biggest fights for the most amount of money, and that's Anthony Joshua. So we're fine. But we just got to get it right. And obviously it gives us the opportunity to look at December 21st, look at Usyk against Fury, see what happens there, and make a decision. But right now, stay calm, get ready to begin camp, probably February, something like that. See what happens February 22nd, see what happens December 21. And, you know, as much as it burns people, AJ's a pretty big name. He can walk into any fight he wants. But we've got to get it right. We can't afford to lose again.
Given how devastating of a defeat it was to Daniel Dubois, and I know you've mentioned the outcome on December 21st in the Usyk-Fury rematch, but is there more of a desire on AJ's behalf to right the wrongs of the Dubois fight as opposed to wait for the Fury fight? If Fury
I think every fighter would want to avenge the defeat, you know. At the same time, the Fury fight is the biggest fight in the sport. But let's see how he goes December 21st.
I also just want to quickly get your thoughts, Eddie, on Frank Warren teaming up with DAZN. Just your thoughts on that.
It's amazing. You know, I think obviously it's such a huge boost for the platform, for British boxing. Now, especially over the last year, there are no barriers to us working together. The only barriers that were there were the fact that we were on different platforms, and it's still our job to do the best and have the best fights on our platforms. Now our platforms is the same platform. So it's open season to making fights, and it's massive for British boxing. Massive. And I'm very proud of DAZN because although this news is just arriving now, we made the move 5 years ago. And we were ridiculed, you know, it was this, it was that. And now everybody wants to be on DAZN. It doesn't matter if it's Queensbury, if it's PBC, if it's Top Rank. They would all jump at the opportunity to be on DAZN. And I'm very proud of what they've built. And this is just tremendous news for DAZN subscribers, for British fight fans, for Matchroom, for Queensbury, of course. And long may it continue of us working together and making the best. We just saw it in Birmingham last week. Liam Davis against Shabazz. I mean, what a brilliant, brilliant fight. You know, and McGraw McCann coming up like it's never ending.
One final thing on it all, Eddie. TNT did want to renew with them, and obviously they didn't get the deal in the end. Boxer and Sky Sports deals is up next year. Let's just say if Sky weren't to renew, if you lose TNT and Sky from British boxing and broadcasting events, how big of a blow would you see that?
But I mean, this is the mentality of not just you, Andy, because you have to ask questions, but our country. It's like we're always trying to find something negative to come out of a positive. So what we've got to look at is to say, wow, Matchroom, Queensberry on the same platform, the two biggest promoters in the country, the home of boxing. Wow, this is incredible. You've got just, one place to watch the biggest fights in the sport. There'll always be broadcasters showing boxing. I'm sure TNT will continue in some capacity. Sky will always be in boxing. Who knows what the future holds? But this is a massive boost, not just for DAZN, but for British boxing. So it's up to other promoters to come up with a product good enough to continue the support of rights payers within the market. And boxing is hot, sexy, with a huge amount of momentum, and we'll be just fine.
Eddie, appreciate your time. Pick this up later.
Cheers.